Good morning, everyone. My name is Kiran Kamboj, and today I will be presenting my research on housing affordability for Generation Z in Australia. This study explores the economic barriers and effectiveness of government policies and the changing housing aspiration of young Australians, especially in the current economic climate. And the research is based on primary data I collect from 50 participants in Generation Z. Introduction. Housing affordability is growing issue for Generation Z in Australia with rising properties price and interest rates. It's becoming increasingly difficult for young Australians to access ownership. As a member of Generation Z myself, I have seen firsthand how difficult it is my peers to buy home even with decades jobs and qualification. This topic of is deeply relevant as the housing market continues to fluctuate and the high cost of living makes it harder for young people to break into the market. The research aims to answer three key questions. What are the economics barriers feed by Generation Z in their pursuit of home ownership? Second, how effective are government programs like the First Home Super Server schemes in helping first-time buyers? Third, how have housing aspiration changed in Generation Z and how these aspiration influenced by economic concentration and social pressure? Research methodology. Now let me work to talk you thought the methodology I used in this research. I employed a mixed methods approach combining both quantitative and qualitative research methods to get a comprehensive understanding of the issue. First, I conduct on online show survey with 50 Generation Z participants from Australia. The survey focus on three main areas: economics barriers to homeowner, government program effectiveness, and housing preference. I used multiple choice question, Likert scale question, and a few open-ended question to gather data. The survey was distributed through social media and email to ensure a wide variety of inspiration. Backstage contain Economic Center 2025. Second, I followed up with 10 semi-structured interviews. These were done with participants who were selected from the survey poll, and the interview last about 30 minutes each and allowed me to divine deeper into personal insight about their challenges, thought on government support, and their housing aspiration. For data analysis, I used descriptive statistics for the survey data and thematic analysis for the interview response. I also used Nevo software for con coding and identifying key themes in the interview data. Results. Economic barriers. Let's look at the results now. The most significant barriers to home ownership for Generation Z in Australia, according to 84% of respondents, is high property price. This is followed closely by 76% of respondents who cite raising interest rate as a measure of scale. In addition to these, to 72% said they struggled to save for a deposit due to the high cost of rent, with 65% mention that a factor that prevents them from saving for a home. In figure 1, you can see the proportion of monthly income spent on housing. As you can see, 74% of respondents are spending over 30% of their income on housing related costs, which indicates the heavy financial burden young people face. Government programs. Now let's move on. The government's programs divides the introduction of programs like the First Home Super Saver scheme. 63% of respondents felt that these initiatives were effective in overcoming on the financial barriers they face. 28% were unfair of the program and 9% thought it was somewhat helpful but still influence. This is suggests that whilst these programs are well intentioned, they are not addressing the understanding program that Generation Z face, such as disparity between wages and the properties price. In table number 2, you can see the awareness and perceived effectiveness of these government's programs devised awareness. Many Generation Z in member feel that these programs are not substantial in thought to address the core issue of affordability. Housing aspiration. When asked about their housing preference, a majority, 52% of respondents prefer long-term renting rather than pursuing home ownership. 33% expressed interested in co-living and state ownership. Only 12% still aspire to own a home. This shows a shift in value of many in Generation Z in traditional dream of home ownership is being replaced by the desire for more flexible and affordable housing option. For example, co-living offers shared living space that reduce cost, making it more applying to young people who face economic pressure. In table number 3, you can see income level influence housing preference. For instance, 60% of those earning less than 50,000 $50,000 prestige renting and co-living, while higher income individuals are more likely to aim for home ownership. From interview, the interview related interesting personal insight into why Generation Z is moving away from home ownership. For example, Sophia is 24. Sydney said, I used to dream of owning a housing, but with the price it feels impossible. Renting allowed me flexibility and I can focus on my career without the mortgage pressures. Similarly, James, 25, Melbourne said, I think co-living is the future. It's cheaper and gives me a better quality of life without the pressure of home ownership. Results clearly show the economic barriers such as a high property price and rising interest rate are making home ownership untenable for many in Generation Z. Uh, Government programs like the First Home Super Server Scheme are not perceived as effective in addressing the core issue of affordability, leaving many young Australians to seek alternative living arrangement like renting or co-living to include. The research shows that Generation Z face in fact in economics barriers to home ownership include high property price and rising interest rates. Government programs, while helpful, are seen as influence to overcome these barriers. As a result, many young Australians are opting for more flexible and affordable housing options like renting and co-living. I recommend the following policy returns. Government should expand eligible for home buyers assistance program and offer more substantial financial sports. Second, sports alternative housing model, more investment in co-living and a shared home ownership program to provide more affordability housing option. Third, financial education. Generation Z would benefit from target financial education program to help them navigate the housing market and understand available programs. Future research. This study had a few limitations, such as a small sample size of 50 respondents and the fact that the survey was connected online may have excluded some individual participants, those from rural areas or lower income background. Further research could involve a large sample size, a more deserved geographic respondation and logical studies to track change in housing preference over time. Good PIB and Villa 2020. Thank you for your attention. Below are the references that were used to support these research. These include case studies and reports that provide important context and a insight into the housing affordability crisis affecting Generation Z